Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good, good. Well, I appreciate you all coming out to listen to the results of the climate survey. I'm sure you're all curious as to how it came out. We've been doing, quite a bit of training, the customer service training, leadership training, and the results of the survey kind of reflect some of the things that have come out of the training. And any statisticians in here?
No.
No? What kind of response rate would you need on a survey for it to be statistically valid?
Depends on how big your population was to start with.
Let's say about 600 people.
Probably 20%.
20%? Okay, what about a 72% response rate?
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah, it is. And if you remember, if you talk to people, you've heard a lot of folks say, well, I'm not going to do it because they don't know, you can track me, that sort of thing. But interestingly, we've tried to do surveys in the past, but a 72% response rate is pretty impressive. Okay, and when you look at the results, you'll see why, the response rate is so high, which, again, it is something that, we reflect on, and we've spent a lot of time talking about, the senior staff spent a lot of time talking about. And what we want to do is just kind of go through it, and if you have any questions as I go along, feel free to interrupt me. Just to give you some background, for anybody who's not really been involved in what we're doing, or been doing, we've been working with a group called 6 Seconds. They're the Emotional Intelligence Network. And they're a group of folks out of San Mateo, California. And they came up with a model of emotional intelligence that they call the 6 Seconds model. But one of the things they do is, they have some assessments in place that will kind of help you gauge your organizational climate as it relates to its ability to respond to changes, to go through organizational change, to respond to the issues that confront them. Those assessments are on the organizational level, on the team level. They have leadership assessments, and they also have individual emotional intelligence assessments that they use. So that's who they are. The way that we came into them was, there's a gentleman, a colleague I have formerly from FedEx. FedEx uses a lot of their stuff, and he pointed me in this direction. And this group, they're a nonprofit, very low cost, very helpful, very easy to work with, and we decided to use their climate survey. To kind of give you a quick overview of their climate model, and as you can see up here, 427 people responded to the survey, and that's 427 out of 591 employees, so it's pretty high. Just to kind of get it going, the climate index, that's kind of an overall grade of how we are. On their scale, and I guess the way the consultant explained it to us, what would a 70 be in one of your classes, Dr. Galvin? That's a C. Okay. So we'd be a C. Okay, overall climate, we'd rate as a C. And the way the model is set up, the way the model is set up, it's basically assessing us across a number of dimensions. Motivation, change, execution, teamwork, our focus, whether it's strategic or operational, our focus as it relates to people, whether it's more people-focused or more organization-focused. And when you have trust in the middle, trust is the thing that kind of lets you kind of move across those dimensions. Okay? Trust is, what we kind of depend on to be able to do things a little different or change. Overall, the way this survey came out, it assesses us in terms of employees who are actively engaged. These are folks that are really committed to making a difference at Southwest and serving our students. They're the ones who are proactive, the ones who are really focused on going out and going above and beyond. Neutral are those employees that they come and they do their work, they come and do their job. Okay? And that's it. They go home. And disengaged is a different group. The disengaged group are those employees who, for all intents and purposes, they're kind of checked out. In some cases, these are the employees that are not working in the best interest of the college. Okay? And you look at that, 30% of employees be disengaged, that's pretty high. Anybody disagree with that? That sounds pretty high.
Paul?
Yes, sir.
Are the stats that are up on the screen right now, engaged 25%, disengaged 30? Is that the results from our survey?
That is the results from our survey. That's based on the responses that individuals gave to the different questions. Okay. Ideally, if you look at it, ideally we want about 67% of our employees to be engaged. Okay. So in terms of engagement, we're pretty low. Okay. That really does mean that there's really a small core of people who are really the ones who are really trying to make a difference. Okay. We have a lot of opportunity where you have folks in a neutral category. Those are the folks that are kind of decided. I mean, they're here, they're doing their jobs, but they haven't really made that decision to go to give it that extra. And the disengaged are the folks that, you know, this may not be the place for them. Again, going back to the model, again, the way this works, and it is not a function of being on one side or the other all the time. It's more a function of being able to move, because there are times where, if you look at the people versus organization, there are times where, you know, we need to be more organizationally focused versus people focused, but, you know, we still have to not lose sight of people, and you kind of move back and forth across that, all right? The level of trust that people have in the organization affects our ability to move across those dimensions. If there's low trust, if trust is low and we're become more organizationally focused, then people tend to feel left out. They feel that something's being neglected. Whereas if trust is high, you know, folks tend to understand why we're not so people focused in a given moment or given point in time. Same thing with the operational and the strategic part. The survey also assesses, you know, the level of motivation that exists in the college, our ability or preparedness for change, our views on teamwork, do we work together, and our sense of how well we get things done. And this is basically what the 5 factors are: motivation, the source of energy to overcome challenges, pursue a goal or maintain commitment, change, readiness to innovate and adapt, teamwork, collaborating to pursue a goal, and again, execution, and then trust. Feeling of confidence, faith, and surety that engenders a willingness to risk and facilitate success, and the other climate factors. Any comments or questions about the model before I go? Okay. Now, here's the climate result. 100%, or 100 represents the median. Okay. Anything left of the median is not good. That's a weakness. That's something that we need to focus on, we need to work on. On the other side of 100 is a strength. Basically what this says, we're motivated. Organizationally, we're motivated. You know, we have that drive. We feel that we have that drive to get things done. Change also being one of our strengths. You know, we're also ready. You know, this is how we see ourselves as an organization. We see ourselves motivated and ready. We want to get it done, and we're ready to see things be different. Where we have weaknesses is on the teamwork and execution side. This basically says that we don't really feel that we work together as well as we ought to. And it also says that we don't really feel like we get things done the way we should. And if you look at trust is pretty low. Okay. And keep in mind, this isn't just trust as it relates to employees and supervisors. This is trust across the organization. So that's something that we have to develop. We have to, you know, trust is based on relationship. It's based on doing a number of things. It's based on, you know, doing what you say you're going to do, all right? So there are a lot of things in this organization we have to focus on. You have a comment or question? No? Okay. Just that look on your faces.
No, it's just a little disturbing.
And the good thing about it is we know. Okay? And it gives us the opportunity to make a difference. Climate and performance. There are 4 factors here: customer focus, productivity, future success, and retention. Customer focus. Do we feel like we're focused on our customers? Whether it be our students, whether it be each other. Do we have a customer focus throughout the organization? Productivity. Are we getting it done? Future success. Are we going to be able to accomplish our goals? And retention. Are people committed to staying? Are people committed to staying here, sticking with it, and making a difference? And again, here's the model as each dimension, what each dimension relates to. So here we are. Retention. We're right there in the middle. I mean, we're at the meeting, we're average. Okay. At least half of our employees are committed to sticking around and making things work. Productivity, our overall sense of how we perform, how we get things done. It's not outstanding, but it's not bad. Okay. Now, where we're suffering, customer focus. As an organization, we don't feel like we're focused on our customer. And I know some folks, I've heard people say, well, our students aren't customers, that sort of thing. Well, as an organization, whether it be how we work with one another or how we work with our students or the community, we don't feel, again, that our focus is in the right place. That's what we're saying. That's what the survey is saying. And future success, we're also saying that, we're not so sure about whether or not we're going to get to where we want to go. And kind of putting it all together, we have a few strengths: motivation. We're motivated. We're ready to change. We're going to stay, and we feel that we're, relatively productive. But we do have some serious weaknesses, and these are things that can't go, unaddressed. These are things that, as an organization, we have to put some effort into making a difference. And these are results by role. If you notice, we're all pretty much in agreement regardless of where we stand in the organization, whether you're faculty, administrators, or staff. If you look at the responses to the questions, we're all kind of in the same place. So there's consensus. And if you look at the faculty response, there were 126 faculty respond. That's more than half the faculty. That's about 60% of the faculty. Support staff, that's almost 100% support staff. That's about 95% support staff.
They wanted to be heard.
They want to be heard. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I've done a couple of customer service workshops, and the feedback or the comments that are made in those workshops really kind of mirror some of what we see up here. That they really do want to make a difference, that they really do see that they have the ability to make a difference, but it's just a matter of having that opportunity. Critical areas, and these are the questions where either employees scored rated the highest or rated the lowest. On the highest, I easily handle change in my workplace. People here do what they say. I can see better ways of doing my work. And again, in the feedback I've gotten from employees in the workshops, that's exactly what they say. Overwhelmingly, that's what they're saying. Okay. Where we have some serious areas of concern, I like where the organization is going. Everyone here has good intentions. We weigh the cost and benefits when making decisions. And these are areas where overwhelmingly, as a college, we feel that And I can tell you that on all of these, the standard deviation is relatively high. It's probably around between 18 to 20 points for every single question. So we're not in total agreement as to where we are, but we're trending in a certain way. Just to kind of share a few of the comments, and let me say that there are hundreds of comments, so I couldn't put them all up here. And these are some of the less positive comments, the first set, and I've got another set. No one seems to be held responsible for the quality of their work. Unsuccessful employees have just moved to another department, becoming an unmanaged problem. Power plays and standouts between departments too common. Plans are made without considering how other areas will be affected. It's discouraging when an employee does not do his job properly, which makes my job much harder. Of course, however, numerous changes in administrations can cause a sense of uncertainty, which has resulted in defensiveness over the years. And some of the, on the other side, and the comments were kind of split between, folks, expressing concern and folks saying that, this is a good place to be. Any questions or comments about what I've presented so far? So what next? What do we do? Where are we headed? Well, and I don't know if you want to speak about Dr. Essex, but just to kind of give you a sense of what we're trying to do. We have been meeting a lot as a senior staff to talk about not just the results of the survey, but just to kind of talk about how we go about doing things. What can we do to change the culture, to change the environment, to make this a better place for our students, to make this a better place for our employees. And, understanding that you can't tackle everything at once. There are some things that we can, try to address pretty quickly. Next steps. Well, first of all, we want to share the results. It's important that everybody knows. And we decided to do it in this format because it's, I think some of the results kind of, need a little explanation. They're not necessarily self-explanatory when you look at the report. We need to establish some standards. One of the things that we really haven't done in this organization is we haven't said organizationally what service looks like in Southwest. Okay? You go a lot of places, you do business with them. We all have places we like to do business. And the places we like, the things that they do that we enjoy aren't things that just happen by accident. Okay? The organization made a decision to be this way, to handle their customers this way, to treat their employees a certain way. And that's something that organizationally, we really haven't just come right out and said it. And that's something that we are doing. And so we've drafted some service standards that we're going to share with the college to get some feedback. And once we get feedback, we'll implement them. We're also going to be conducting some touch point sessions. And basically what that is, and I know a few folks have got through the customer service training, but basically what that is anybody that we interact with, any student, any employee that relies on us for any kind of service, there are multiple times in which we have an opportunity to deliver high quality service. Okay? And what the exercise does is basically allow you to, basically walks you through it. And it starts with something as simple as coming to the campus. Okay? If someone calls the college looking for Southwest, number one, what are they going to get? The person who answers the phone, can they give directions? We never really thought about that. Okay? We say need to be pleasant and helpful and that sort of thing, but everybody's not good with directions. So little things like that, things that we don't really think about, that we kind of take for granted. The touch point sessions lets us address those. So we're going to do it on a departmental level. So we're going to the departments, we'll take certain things certain aspects of the interaction, and decide what that really needs to look like. One of the areas that were mentioned in the survey is communication. So one of the things we want to do is to get together, a team to really kind of talk about what can we do to really communicate better. And one of the things that comes up often is that one department will make a decision to do something certain. For example, closing. Okay, well, it affects other folks, but they don't know that you're closed until they show up or someone directs them in that place or office is moved and nobody knows about it. Okay. So those are some of the things that we're going to do. Dr. Essex, did you?
Yeah. One, I want to commend Paul for his leadership in initiating this assessment, this survey. Some organizations kind of stay away from this kind of thing because they really don't know. But I think it says to all of you that we are very interested in how people feel about Southwest. The thing that's most troubling to me is the trust issue, because I think if that issue is addressed as it needs to be, some of these other things will fall in place. But when the trust is not there, it's very, very difficult to move forward. So we're going to be working on the culture, working on the trust issues, and any other aspects that you saw here that and I don't like average. I've never made a C in my life. So average doesn't do anything for me. We want to be beyond average. My suspicion, Paul, that some of this may be linked to particular units where people work. They base their responses on their experiences in those units, but it has college-wide implications irrespective. It reflects on us as a college. So I want you to know that we're committed to do what we need to do to be a more effective organization, to improve communication, to deal with the trust issues so that we can move forward as an institution. We're facing very challenging times, and it's vitally important that we're on the same page. We're communicating, the respect is there, the trust is there, the leadership is there. That's why we have initiated the leadership programs, the customer service programs. So this whole concept falls on the leadership in this college. It's our responsibility to fix this, and we're going to do all that we can to get that done. So I just applaud Paul for what he's doing, and I'm excited about at least knowing what we need to do, what the perceptions are, because the other thing that we don't do, and I've said this to our leadership, we don't listen to people that report to us. People who do these things every day have ideas about how to best do it, but we don't tap that resource. So I'm very pleased with the fact we've initiated this, and I'm very, very confident that you're going to see a lot of progress in this college based on the feedback we've got.
And this isn't the end of it. I mean, we're going to tackle the problem. We're going to tackle the issues. And, we're going to resurvey. We're going to keep resurveying. We're going to keep working on it. We're going to keep refining it until, we finally get it right. I think, Southwest has a whole lot of, really talented folks who are poised to make, a really big difference. We just have to create the environment and give folks the opportunity. The service standards is something that we'll send out in the next day or so. But to just kind of give you a sense of what they're trying to address, what we're trying to address, and this is just one part of it. But basically we're saying, every customer, whether it's internal or external, should receive courteous and respectful service without exception. Okay, it shouldn't just be because you got in front of the right person. That the customer should get the top priority and focus during the service experience. We spend a lot of time talking about processes. We spend a lot of time working on processes, but we don't always step back and look at the process from the customer standpoint. And that's something that we're going to do. Find processes, rules, and regulations that are customer centered and adhere to required laws and regulations. That the customers offer appropriate solutions to their problems. One of the things we know is that folks come and they don't get what they're looking for because somebody just didn't take the effort, take the time to give it to them, to share it with them. Get value for the investment in time and money. None of us come here to waste our time. Our customers, our students don't come here to waste their time. Be listened to. common and secure access to information, be served in a professional environment that is neat, bright, welcoming, and safe. Have their privacy protected and respected. Understand and be able to accomplish their part of the service process. So that's kind of where we are. Anybody have any questions or comments or any feedback you'd like to give me that we can kind of take forward?
I need a comment. When we do these kinds of surveys, I remember being involved with a climate survey, culture survey when we first merged. And one of the concerns that participants have is what's going to happen next, which you are addressing. So if we do follow through in an effort to improve, that will help us to gain more confidence in the college, I believe, and in the leadership. So this trust is an issue.
Yeah. Don?
I just assessed a major library system nationally, and one thing they were having a lot of service problems like this. They had like 30 sites around their county, and they were having a lot of complaints from citizens and the way they're being treated. And they did a survey, kind of like this climate survey, but what they did afterward, they developed a liaison position, whereas they could get real-time complaint information from employees, associates, and do something about it and not let it fester up to this point. Another assessment I just completed is that when you log into the computer once a week, they have a three questions you have to answer to get into the system, and it's called a real-time climate survey. For instance, how was your day today? What was something? Just it could be very apolitical, but it would give you a sense, and it does an analysis of how your whole employee population feels about the climate. And to me, the things get so bottled up in the organizations I look at on the climate survey, they do it maybe once a year, once every 2 years, that what they don't have is a release valve to get those before they fester up to an infected environment. So those are just two things that I learned in the last 6 months from other organizations that had similar type things happening, but they see that getting their arms around the climate on a real-time basis was really important.
Yeah, I think that's really good feedback because this particular assessment is a snapshot. It's how people are feeling the day they took it. If you had a bad day, then you probably didn't respond very well. So you're right, getting that immediate daily feedback would be something that
This is a good foundation, but I think because I see in some of these comments festering up that they've held them for a long time. So what you really want to do is real time. What is it like in the next 6 months from now? And especially when going through certain registrations and things. So that way you can put a little credence in that kind of data. That this being the foundation for it.
Yeah, that's something that we'll have to talk about and see if there's a way that we can maybe utilize something like that.
The only thing I was gonna add, Paul, is that currently for performance funding, we're working on the alumni survey from our graduates from 2 years ago. We have a different perspective coming into our office right now from the student side, from one of our major shareholders. And we'd like to work with you guys to try and tie some of this back together.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of this very similar comments, but it's from the students' perspective.
Yeah, and that would be great because that would give us, that third view of how things really are. I know we see them certainly, Dr. Essex.
I missed the conversation. I was going to ask this group, did anything up here surprise you? The finding, anything surprise anybody?
The only thing that surprised me was the response rate. Very high.
Well,
So everything, no surprise?
I was surprised by the customer service attitude because I always thought that anecdotally that we would have a higher rating than that we thought of customer service. I was disappointed and thought it was lower than what I was expecting on that. I knew it was an issue, but that's pretty low against it.
Yeah, and I would say that goes back to what Dr. Essex said. We tend not to listen to our people like we ought to. And I think, and again, going back to those workshops that I've had with the frontline folks, that's exactly, because some of the things that have come out have been, y'all made some decisions that really haven't been good for the student. Okay, and when they pointed out a couple of things, some of them very good. Some of the things that we've decided were really kind of silly, but it made sense to somebody. It made sense to somebody with a really nice title. We're going to do this, and it was like, that was,
Shame on you, Paul.
So there are a lot of things like that, and one of the things that we've got to do, and one of the things that those touch point sessions are going to do, is get to that. It's going to let them kind of vocalize how this experience should be. Yes, ma'am.
You may recall, I did email you about the results for 6 seconds, and some of you may know that we are moving toward a student success model at the college, which does encompass looking at our processes and across the college, and especially in student services, and using data to make decisions. So I'd like to also see the data from the alumni, because that will tie in very well with this, so that we can write a report on our findings in an effort to determine where we need to go, which is what you're telling me. But just to put it all together from a former student's point of view to the current faculty and staff.
Yeah, no.
One thing that I'd like to see a consideration is to have a customer council that meets maybe twice a year. It's made up of just a random selection of students with experience and a random selection of support staff and even faculty members that deal with students, so that we would get a real sense of what are some real service standards that they value, and what are some that we really need to maybe modify and look at. Because again, it gives us real-time information, because what we lose sometimes is right after the registration experience or whatever, everything's high volume then, but we lose some of that impact of and maybe that's when the customer council meets. But they be held up in high esteem and be recognized. But I mean, if we're real serious about customer service, and it looks like that's something we want to really get more serious about, that would be some real-time information. And if we really value our students, our customers, we really want to know what they're really thinking.
Another thing is our customers are also internal, not just students, and I think we need to explore something about how we treat each other, and that trust kind of issue, because I think that permeates to the students, through everything, if we don't have trust, I mean, we're not treating each other well.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. And one of the things that, we've got, like, for example, leadership training, a really big focus, or what it kind of underlines, is this whole sense of empathy, having empathy, for employees, for students, what have you. And, that's also part of what we're doing with the customer service piece. So one of the things we're really trying to develop and build within the organization is that sense of having genuine concern for the folks you work with, for the students you serve. And probably the thing that's been most shocking to me, or most interesting to me, is that when I talk to some of the frontline employees, they don't always understand, or no one's helped them understand how they really are connected to the student, how important that student success really is. Okay? And that is a leadership issue. Okay? And that's something that the leaders of the college have to do a better job of expressing and not just express, but demonstrate. You've got to live it.
And I think that's a great point, because two things that are an immediate help, and I've been working with 2 clients right now, is response to emails and phone calls internally, and not having a cycle time, or having it well defined within so many hours you need to respond, because we kill ourselves with each other. We don't treat each other very nicely when we don't respond. Obviously, you're not going to email someone if you don't need some kind of response, and not 3 days later. So those are some very simple things that could be looked at for customer service standards in any organization.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because understanding and putting it together, I think that would be something that would be good to actually spell out what we expect in terms of email response and returning a phone call.
Those are just some simple things that any organization can get better at.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that's an area that I can certainly improve in as well. And that's the cool thing about this. There are areas that we can all get better at, and this kind of points to that. And to kind of close things out, we talk about the next steps, but that's not all. I mean, there are other things that we're doing that aren't necessarily that aren't as a result of this, but they're things that we are trying to do that will have an impact on us both internally and externally. Just to mention a couple, I think by now everybody's familiar with people admin. Well, we're looking at moving away from people admin, moving to another product that's much better than people admin. But has a talent management component, and it's really, going to help us develop people, let people know where they are, put them on, path to whatever their career goals might be, which I know that would make me feel better, if I were someone who was looking to move up in the organization or had that desire. The other thing is, if all goes well next week, we'll finally have a pay-for-performance compensation system. So that goes up for approval next week at TBR, at the board meeting. So once that's in place, then it really becomes incumbent on us to ensure the success of our students, because it'll translate into our own personal success as well. Because everything we do from a compensation standpoint really will be based on what our funding is like. And we all know that, we need a new funding formula. Student success, our performance, being efficient, being good at what we do is really going to drive a lot of that. So there's some other things that are going on that we think will have a huge impact on that. Any other questions or comments before?
I just want to, I think it's great what senior administration is doing, because we're so focused on the customer, both internal and external, that we've never been before. The 20 years I've been here, I've never seen this much intensity of focus. And I think that says a lot about how things are being managed and overlooked. I mean, it's really a plus, and I'm just excited that hopefully the students are going to feel that soon, as well as our faculty and our support staff.
Yeah, and I would say for me personally, having the opportunity to talk to those frontline employees, the ones that see the students, that work with the students, the ones that we depend on every day to get our jobs done, that's what opened my eyes to a whole lot of things. I mean, you think you think you understand, but, sometimes until you get it from a different perspective and you actually get it from the folks that actually know it, this is their reality. I look at it from here, but they're the ones actually having to deal with the person on the other end of the phone or across the counter or in the offices. So
They touch our customers immediately.
absolutely.
That's the ones that count.
Yeah, and they make internally and externally. So yes, sir.
So Paul, one of the things that happened in the session that I attended in Macon, some of the staff persons were just talking about, they weren't being critical, they just talked about some of the activities in the department, some of the things that they thought could be better. And it's my understanding, I may be wrong with this, some of that apparently leaked back to their managers who were upset.
Right.
See, that's a symptom that an organization is not healthy when that kind of thing happens, because we ask them to express their views. There's an open forum. And of course, Paul had some stipulations. You couldn't call names, and nothing was said derogatory. It was just simply saying there's a better way to do that. If we had an opportunity, we could have provided that kind of input, and managers were upset about that. Well, that's got to be fixed, people. That's got to change. That's symptomatic of much of what we talked about here today.
That directly affects trust. So I
Exactly.
won't say anything.
Exactly.
Again, I'm just thinking about some anecdotal examples. Perhaps we decided to set up a particular process, and some of the individuals involved in setting it up have said, this is just not going to work. I said, did you say anything? But no, I'm just going to do it every time. And it didn't work.
Exactly.
So they didn't feel comfortable.
But see, Cynthia, that says, though, that the environment is such that people don't feel comfortable making suggestions or whatever. This is the kind of environment we've established from a leadership standpoint where people are not comfortable expressing those. And that has to change.
And and I think I've said to a couple of folks that things are going to change. Some folks will be a part of it, and some folks will
Exactly.
not.
And a lesson I've learned over 20 years of doing assessments, the most important people in an organization are the frontline employees,
Absolutely.
because they touch our customers, and they're the ones that get less pay, less recognition, and they get all the grief. And so if we start thinking that they are the point of contact, they are the most important part of the Southwest, it changed all of our paradigms about how we think as managers. Because it really is a big difference. I mean, they are the most important people we have here, because they touch those students.
We don't make them feel that way, Don. We don't make them feel that way.
No, but that's our opportunity.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
we're
absolutely.
missing the boat, because I've learned that lesson in 20 years now, and this last 2 months, I've done 2 big ones, 2 companies, 2 organizations, and it is so obvious, and it just releases a lot of synergy when you start looking at that direction.
I mean, we're learning. I mean, we don't get everything right. Some things we do very well, some things we do very poorly, but we're learning. And I think that's what makes the difference. I think that's why that's why we're going to get to where we need to be, because we're learning. And we're changing, we're growing, we're going to become better than we were when we started.
Open-minded.
Absolutely.
Open-minded.
Yeah, too much depends on it.
And one of the challenges is for us individually and collectively to take ownership of that, especially that trust issue. What is my behavior to where my employees may not trust me? How did that happen? Versus blaming the other person.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's something that we are going to get to in areas that we identify as being where there may be some critical issues. From a leadership standpoint, that there is a leadership assessment we're going to utilize. We're also going to utilize some an assessment that looks at a group as a team to see if there are issues or areas that can improve there as well. So we've got some neat little tools in our toolbox, and we've got some support and assistance and guidance from some folks that do it pretty well. So, yes, ma'am.
Will there be an opportunity for results from the survey to be discussed, department? Because there were some questions that were specific to your department that you work in, and there were some questions that were geared towards your opinion of the entire organization. And I was just wondering if there were some issues that were consistent within departments, if departments would have a chance to discuss that and some of those issues.
Yeah, the breakdown of the survey is really limited to, whether you support faculty, administrator, or whether the vice president's area you report to. But going down deeper, we didn't collect that data, so we don't really know, for example, how the folks in payroll may have responded to the questions. So, but in terms of overall, like academic affairs, but that's a pretty large group. So. But again, if there are areas, if there are units where, there may be some area of concern, there is another assessment we can do that'll drill down even deeper. So. Well, if there are no other questions or comments, I appreciate you all coming, and I look forward to seeing you all out there and making a difference.
Well, thank you. We appreciate